Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the ICSP Hyderabad. Myself, Syed Nematullah Seni, the tutor in the ICSP Hyderabad. So, in the previous session, already we have seen actually the basic introduction of what is clinical trials programming or using SAS, and or we can say what is clinical SAS or SAS clinical. All are one and the same, right? So here, let us proceed further. We will see further in this actually the perspective what exactly the clinical SAS programming, what we are going to do in this actually clinical SAS programming. So further we will see here. Further I will elaborate here in this session. So what are the topics we are going to cover in this clinical trials programming, right? So here, just I want to share you the screen. Just I want to show you what exactly we have in this in our syllabus. So before that, actually, just I want to give the basic overview. Actually, what exactly the clinical trials programmer actually what they are going to do, what they are doing, and what it deals with, what exactly we are going to do in this. In this perspective, right? So here, for example, here just I will read out some of the points mentioned here. The first main point is nothing but here the clinical trials programming is a research oriented programming. It's a research oriented programming. So here what we are going to do, see, this is actually the programming is based mainly on the research data, mainly on the research data, clinical research data. So here what we are going to do is nothing but, see, the data is actually assessed. The data is assessed here into the SAS. Actually, we are using the software here. SAS already I have discussed you before. So what software we are going to use and why we are using the SAS. So here the data is imported. The data is imported. It is actually fetched into the SAS environment. Right? So after assessing the data, after getting the data into the SAS environment, so we are actually assessing the data. We are first assessing the data, then we are exploring the data. The data is explored in the sense means like we are checking the data for the integrity of the data, whether there is some mistakes, whether there are some errors, whether the data is actually obsolete, whether the data is having actually the valid or not. So we are actually exploring the data. Then we are cleaning the data. We are cleaning the data because the in our actual research one concept is there, always the data is raw. Data is raw means it consists of so many discrepancies and so many errors, so many actually unwanted things. So we have to clean the data. First of all, we have to clean the data. So after cleaning the data, actually we are filtering the data using actually the so many like expressions, so many actually functions are there which are used in the SAS for filtering the data. So filtering in the sense means actually we want certain information. So we want to actually fetch only a part of the information. We don't want the whole data set. So what the information we want to get it from the data. So there is a huge information. Is the data means it consists of a huge information. Maybe like one data set may be having, for example, 1,000 to 10,000 observations are there, or maybe some 30, 50 variables are there. So maybe all variables, all things we don't want. We want some of the data which we want, which is actually essential. So for that we are filtering the data. Then finally we are processing the data using the SAS functions, SAS procedures. Different procedures are there, but we are applying the different procedure. We are processing the data. Then the data is analyzed. The data is analyzed for actually for statistical analysis we are doing, like we are finding the mean, we are finding the frequency, we are finding the inferential or like a descriptive statistics we are doing on the data. So this is the next step. Then we are actually transforming the data. Transforming the data means, for example, sometime the data sets are actually not in a proper format. We want to transform into the required format. Understood? So we are transforming the format again by using different procedures. We are going to see in the future classes what are the procedures, right? Then finally, after processing the data here, actually we are generating the reports. So these reports actually after analysis, after making the data into correct format, we are actually generating the reports. These reports maybe is exported. The reports are exported in the form of HTML, PDF, Excel, RTF, CSV, PPT, and so many file formats. So these are nothing but the work of the brief work of the actually clinical SAS programmer. In between, actually, sometimes the data is actually we are going to generate the graphs also. The graphical representations is also there, right? We want to generate the graphs by using this data actually, right? So here, this is actually the final, actually the data after the next step is nothing but here. The data is standardized. The data is standardized. What do you mean by standardization? Is nothing but the data is actually in the format which is actually not acceptable by the FDA. See, FDA, they want certain format. In certain format, they want to accept the file, right? The file has to be presented in certain file, in certain file format. Certain standards are there. Certain standards are there because the research is going on throughout the world. So everyone is collecting the data in their own formats. But FDA, they want, or any regulatory body, they want the data in certain format. So the data has to be standardized. See, for standardizing the data, we have CDISC organization, Clinical Data Interchange Submission Consortium is actually the standard consortium is a CDISC organization. So which is dealing with this standardization. They have proposed certain actually, we can say actually the certain standards. These standards are nothing but SDTM, ADAM, Define. All these are nothing but the standards, right? So these standards actually will guide the researcher. We guide the researcher actually how the data has to be presented, how the output has to be presented to the FDA. So this is nothing but the standardization. So here, this is the next step actually involved in the clinical SAS programming. Then finally, these data is actually sent to the FDA for the approval of the drug. So this is actually the workflow, I can say, what exactly happening in the clinical SAS programming. So throughout this, we are using the SAS as the interface for the programming. All the programming is done in SAS language. So the next part actually, what actually the course structure, what exactly we have in the course. See, this clinical SAS programming is a master course. Clinical SAS programming is a master course. We have divided this course into three sub courses. Three sub courses we can say, right? So first is actually base and advanced SAS. Next is nothing but clinical research and clinical data management. And we have CDISC standards. Already I have discussed just now. CDISC standards include SGTM, ADAM, right? So TLFs, all these things are included in the CDISC. So basically, we can say there are three modules, or we can say three parts. We can say not exactly modules, three courses. Three courses are there within the master course of clinical SAS programming. So each course is actually, I can say, it's like a C. It's like a C. If you're going to study base and advanced SAS itself, it will take more than 1 month. Then we have clinical research and clinical data management. It's a separate, actually, we can say course, and CDISC is a separate course. And moreover, actually, one thing I want to make you clear, each course is having its own actually value. For example, if you're just completing the base and advanced SAS, there are so many jobs available just in the base and advanced SAS. As a SAS programmer, base SAS programmer also you can work. In clinical research, clinical research, you can work as a clinical research associates, right? You can join the research team, you can work as a clinical research associate. And if you do the CDM, you can actually join as a clinical data manager. So there is a job available with the actually clinical data manager. And with the CDISC, actually there is separate jobs are available for CDISC. So actually this master course consists of 3 courses, and each course in turn have its own actually future perspective. Means you can do a lot of actually, a lot of scopes are there, a lot of jobs are there in these courses, separate courses also, right? So this is there. And next, finally, what is the scope actually for the SAS programmers that I want to make you clear? Just now I told you, see, SAS is like a C. SAS is just not like a clinical SAS. SAS means actually the SAS language is used, the SAS program is used worldwide in a variety of actually fields the SAS is used. For example, SAS play a vital role in, you are getting so many jobs are there, like as a data administrator, data warehouse architect, developer, business analyst, financial analyst, marketing analyst, big data analyst, right? Data scientist, statistical programmer, clinical data manager, quality analyst. All these jobs are available for the SAS programmers. So this is actually the scope of the SAS. So there is a wide role SAS plays, not only in the one field, in so many fields actually there's a lot of scope is there for the SAS. Okay. Then finally coming to the clinical trial, right? Actually the SAS play a very important role in clinical trials. In the previous session already I discussed with you what is the role of the SAS in the clinical trial programming. So here there is actually the clinical SAS programmer, actually the value of the demand for the clinical SAS programmer is ever increasing. You can see in the health industry, in the pharma industry, there are a lot of jobs are available in the multinational, in the companies like Novartis, like you have Glaxo, and you have, for example, so many companies are there. There are n number of companies are there. They are hiring the clinical SAS programmers. So there is a lot of scope. So here, what the clinical SAS, for example, here the clinical SAS plays very important role, right? So in the why the actually I already I discussed all these things. I am not going to go in detail. So the clinical SAS, the SAS plays a very important role in the this one actually the research studies, the clinical research studies, right from the beginning, from the first point. So in the research, I told you while designing the CRF case report forms till the submission of the data, in between there are so many steps are there in research. In each and every step, in formulating, in designing the CRF forms, right, in actually designing the study, in randomization, and so many places like in the adverse event actually the reporting, and so many things actually the SAS play important role. It's not just a statistical software, it is helping in it's play actually variety of role in the clinical trial programming. So this is actually the scope of the SAS in the field. And finally, actually, you are having the job market is very hot nowadays. Actually, due to the COVID crisis, there are n number of jobs available for the SAS programmers. So here I told you there are so many companies like Novartis, Glaxo, Pfizer, Roche, all they are hiring the clinical SAS programmers. So this is the right time to join the clinical trial programming, and there is a lot of scope. I invite you to join the course. Thank you.